So the first thing is the concept of jackknife in a trailer, and I've done it twice. And it's when you back your trailer up and you cut it at such an angle where the truck actually comes into contact with the trailer and damage results. And I'll show you right now what damage resulted when it happened to me. Here you have the bumper pushed in and then caused severe damage to this quarter panel here. So the bumper needs to be replaced and the entire quarter panel needs to be replaced. So how did that happen? Well, there were two instances. One was I was on a trip and I wanted to pull over somewhere to rest, and I pulled down a street and it ended up being a dead end, and it was very difficult to turn around. I was really having a hard time, and I ended up pulling it too sharp of an angle. And the other one was just back into a spot in a state park, and I turned too hard. In both cases, the first warning that something was wrong was that awful sound that shows you the damage is already done. When you hear that sound, it's already too late. So there are a couple ways to prevent this, and one is to, if you have a choice, you want your trailer to swing on the driver's side so you can see what's going on in the side, at least the side view mirror. The other thing is to have a spotter. And if you're alone, ask someone to spot for you, especially if you're in a campground. People are happy to help. Then if there's no spotter and you can't back where you can see in your side view mirror, go slow and continually stop and get out of the truck and look, especially when you think it might be close. Stop, go a few inches if necessary. Stop, get out and look. It's really a foolproof way to avoid damage. And you think, hey, everybody's looking at me, they think I'm an idiot. Guess what? No one cares. Take care of your truck, take care of your trailer. So I had a little problem with my Starlink cable. What's my Starlink cable? Starlink is the satellite service, internet service that everybody's talking about. And it involves running a cable from inside your rig to the dish. And I run it out of my side compartment. And when I'm all done with it, when I get ready to move, I coil it up, put it back in the compartment, I close it up, and I drive off. One day, it didn't work out that way. I have a checklist that I use, and it's extensive. Every time I break camp and I leave, I go through the checklist, and one of the things is making sure that all my compartments are shut. And I religiously do this. This one day, I started out on a trip and I thought of something I needed from a compartment. I stopped somewhere and I opened the compartment. I got what I needed, and I took a phone call or text message or got distracted somehow. And I left with that compartment open. And what happened was that Starlink cable worked its way to the side and then fell out, and I dragged that cable for miles and absolutely destroyed it. And because I didn't have a spare cable, I was no Starlink internet for almost three and a half weeks at the time. So the lesson there is, every time you stop, go through your checklist. Even if you develop a mini checklist for short stops, you really have to pay attention, or you're gonna break stuff. Well, if you have a trailer like me and you boondock like me, and you don't want to drag your trailer to the dump station every time you need to dump, you have a setup like I do. I have a 36-gallon tote, which easy to, when it's empty, to pick up, put in the back of my pickup truck. And if you look at the end of my sewer connection, there's a pump. It's called a macerator pump, and it's connected to basically a garden hose Notice it's got black tape at both ends to remind me this is the black tank only garden hose. That end of it goes into the top of this baby here when it's in the truck. And you can see that this is the thing that unscrews. There's a big opening, the hose goes in there, and you fill it up. So what's so hard about that? There's nothing hard about that. Except if you just lazily put that hose in that big hole and expect it's going to stay on its own, you might get a big surprise like I did one day. The pressure from the poop going through the macerator through the hose popped that hose out of the top of that and sprayed this poop everywhere in the back of my truck. And it was not easy to get that cleaned up and get rid of that smell. So if you have a setup like that, be mindful. So right after I bought the trailer, as I was about to embark on my retirement journey a little over a year ago, I had a schedule that I wanted to keep to, and I noticed a problem. The first thing I noticed was that I had a rear tail light that I can't remember exactly whether the brake wouldn't work or the signal wouldn't work. It was one or the other. It was only half working. And I took it off and I examined the wiring. Everything looked fine. So the only thing I could figure was that it needed to be replaced. It was faulty somehow. And I could not get the part from Winnebago. And it was a very specific thing. And so because I just bought the trailer, I decided to make an appointment to bring it in to have them look at it and fix it. So I was staying in an RV park at the time. Took me several weeks to get an appointment, and it was just a couple of days before retirement. And if they couldn't fix it, I was going to be on the road with a faulty taillight, and that wasn't going to be a good thing. So I finally bring it in, but on the way, a very scary thing happened. I'm driving down the highway, and the trailer brakes start to engage without me touching anything. So the trailer's jerking, and I pull off to the side of the road, and I'm looking at everything. I can't figure out what's wrong, and I slowly start, and it's working for a little while, and then it starts jerking again, and I limp my way like that to the dealer. And I finally pull up in front of the dealer, and I'm just casually walking around my trailer, and I look down, and let me show you what I was looking at. I looked at the electrical line that goes to the 7-way pin, and I wish I kept a picture of it, but I looked at the side here. The insulation was completely stripped off. The wires were bare. And as I looked at it, it suddenly dawned on me what was going on. Through my research trying to figure out why the taillight wasn't working, I realized that there were different wires, different separate electrical wires for things like turn signal and stoplight and running lights. And as I looked at the damage, I realized, well, there's going to be a separate line for the brakes too. So what had happened was I hadn't paid attention, and that line had somehow at some point dragged along the ground. It wasn't clear of the ground, so it cut through that insulation and created some short circuits, causing the problem with my taillight and then causing the problem with my brake going off. So all they had to do was they replaced it, and it was good as new. Here's what you want to have to prevent that. It's one of these little clips that locks everything down, and there's room to put the electrical line through that. It'll keep the slack up, and it'll keep your electrical line safe from those kinds of abrasions that I experienced. So for the last one, this mistake happened on my old trailer, and it's the reason it's my old trailer, not my current trailer. I had I think it was a 2014 Nomad 27-footer. I loved that trailer. It was It was my first trailer, and I lived in it for several years and loved it. One day, I was sitting watching TV, and water started to pour out of a light fixture in the ceiling, and I knew I had a big problem. So I went up to the roof, and I'm walking on the roof, and I step to a certain place, and it starts giving in, and I realize my roof has been destroyed by water. The membrane was very, very thin. There'd been a big storm, and it developed a leak, and I knew it was really bad news. Well, I called my insurance company. My insurance company came out and looked at it, and they said, it is a big problem. Your entire roof needs to be replaced. And the adjuster came out and said it's going to cost about $5,000 or $6,000. And they paid that claim. And I had a real roofing company come out, and they replaced that roof. They replaced it with much better materials than the original contractor. Plywood that was made for weather, and much thicker membrane, better insulation. Everything was better. I was really, really excited that I had insurance paid for a brand new roof for me. It was fantastic. Well, about 6 to 9 months later, I'm looking at the side of my rig, and the side's warped. And I'm like, oh no, I've heard about this. This is called delamination. And delamination occurs on a trailer when moisture gets between that outer layer and the whatever material it's attached to or glued to beneath that. And what had happened was that moisture was there when the insurance adjuster was there, but the delamination wasn't. So he didn't know about the damage. I didn't know about the damage. And although I had a beautiful new roof, essentially my trailer was ruined. And over time, I noticed the lamination was getting worse and worse. And the value of my trailer, as I tried to maybe trade it in or sell it, it was worth just about scrap value. I think I got less than $2,000 for it when I traded in to get the new Winnebago that I'm in now. The lesson there, and this is a very important lesson, is check your roof for tears, for leaks, especially when there's a storm. Debris can hit up there. You might not hear it. It tears a hole in the roof. By the time you see water intruding into the interior of your trailer or your RV, it's too late. Resist. I know it can be dangerous going up on your roof. It's a pain in the ass. But if you're gonna own an RV and you want to keep it, you have to resign yourself to the fact that either you or somebody else needs to get up there on that roof on a regular basis and check it for leaks, or you're gonna lose your precious investment. I know I said 5, but I'm gonna give you a bonus one. And I would have said this one, talk about a lucky guy. I was staying in an RV park in Pahrump, Nevada. It was October, for the month of October. I was doing some volunteer work, so I was away for 8 hours at a time. And one afternoon, I got home after my shift, and I walked in and I stood at the sink, and I thought, why is it warm? Why am I feeling heat? And I glanced over at the stove, and there was my little teapot that I used to boil water, and the flame was going under there. The teapot was empty. The teapot was practically black, totally discolored. That burner had been on for 8 hours. And why my trailer didn't burn to the ground, I have no idea. Sometimes you're just lucky. I considered replacing that teapot. I didn't. I left it. It's functional. It looks like hell, but it reminds me to shut the damn stove off when I leave, or properly shut it off when I'm done using it. It's really stupid mistakes like that that can destroy your home and maybe take pets as well. Pretty serious thing, but there's your bonus item.